Let's take a moment for the shirt. I want to thank Kelly Wilson for sending it to me because Halloween would be nothing without these 6 iconic horror kings. Hey, what's up? Hello, it's Katie Colson here. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be discussing the Weekendween Monster Mashup Edition. Now, this is going to be a read-along that is hosted by Gabby and Olivia. You've probably heard of it. They've done plenty of them in the past, as well as I have participated in almost all of them. So basically what it is you're trying to bring spooky season into different parts of the year. So maybe if it's like summertime or wintertime, it's close to Christmas, or you're on the beach and you really want to read like spooky books, you want to read horror, like ghost, paranormal, mystery thrillers, and you don't want it to be weird. So basically they invented this read along so that a bunch of people can read these spooky things together and not feel so alone in reading them at not the Halloweeny time of year. But since we are in the Halloweeny time of year, they're doing a Weekendween to celebrate Halloween. So this is going to be taking place from, don't be wrong, Friday the 28th to Monday the 31st. If I'm right about that. If I'm not, anyway, that is going to be what we're doing for then. And then there is going to be 4 prompts. And basically what I'm going to be doing in this video is helping you kind of go through a couple different things that you could be reading, maybe give you some suggestions and recommendations on what you could use to fill out these prompts. Now for the first one, I'm going to be doing that in the vlog, but it is to flip a coin to decide what you read. So basically what you could do is a number of different things. You could take a coin and you could say, it's between these 2 books. If I get heads, I'll pick this book. If I get tails, I'll pick this book. Or you can make it even more fun and say like, okay, you have a coin and you tell, oh, this would be fun. If you had a coin and you say, if it lands on heads, then my boyfriend is going to pick the book I read. If I land on tails, my mom is going to pick the book I read. And then they have free reign over your entire TBR or maybe the library, and then they decide what you're going to read. So that could be a lot of fun. Now, prompt 2 is to read a book that has a monster on the cover, in the title, or in the book. And this is something that Gabby said that you can take any which way. It could be a serial killer. It could be an actual monster. It could be paranormal. Anything you decide that you want to fit in that. So I have quite a few suggestions for this. Monstrous by Marjorie Liu. So this would actually fit for prompts 2 and 3, but this is a graphic novel. I know it looks huge, but that's because this is a compendium version. It's actually not that long. You could just read volume 1, but it has monster in the title, so it's already perfect. But then this is kind of sci-fi dystopian fantasy-esque, and there are a lot of like creatures. This creature's living inside of her. This is a really, really creepy, very well drawn graphic novel. I highly suggest it. I'm not really going to be able to describe it very well because it's so complex, but basically like this girl is a half-breed. She is like, all these people are basically half animal, half human, but she has this thing that's living inside of her, and a lot of people want it because it's basically like this like ancient god basically, or this ancient demon almost, and she's on the run for her life, but then she's also trying to figure out what happened to her mom and all this different stuff. It's very complicated. It's really good, but I would definitely suggest this, especially because the 3rd prompt involves graphic novels as well. Then you could do that there is a monster on the cover, and that would be Slew Foot by Brahm. So we have Samson, our demon daddy, on the back, which is a creature. He is kind of like a demon god. So that counts for monster. And also the audiobook for this, exquisite. It's so freaking good. It's about this girl, Abatha, who's a witch. So I guess if you want to consider monsters, a monster like a witch, seems a little derogatory, but we'll skip past it. This is about Abatha, and she is down and out. Like she is so hung up on like she doesn't have any money, and she's trying to get this farm up and going, and she accidentally stumbles upon Samson, who awakes and doesn't know where, like what happened to him, who he is, why he fell asleep for so long, and he starts helping Abatha not reevaluate, like reinvigorate her farm so that she can make money, because Abatha is going to help him figure out who he is. It's so good. And then like, if this doesn't tell you, also monsters, like let's talk about monsters real quick. Look at that. Are you kidding me? This is fucking stunning. It's so good. A monster classic, you could read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is my favorite classic. It is very gothic. It is old school. It's so good. And I'm not even going to go into what it's about because it's Frankenstein. Or you could take Monster as being a vampire story, and we already know what I'm going to say because they're two of my favorite books, literally, of all time. But we have A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is supposed to be a retelling of Dracula's Brides, and you are following Constanta, who is the main character, and her life with Dracula, and she is basically narrating this through letters she writes to Dracula after she has killed him, trying to explain why she's done this, where she came from, where her life is going to lead after this, and it is so beautiful. This is some of the most beautiful writing I've ever read. And it's short. It's very short. So I would highly suggest reading this for Weekendween. But then we have the tried and true vampire classic, The Southern Book Club's Guide to Seeing Vampires. This is so good. And like, it has vampire on the cover. Like, it fits, okay? So this is basically about this Southern book club in the Satanic Panic era, and they're reading really boring stuff, and basically they all kind of come together to decide that they want to read true crime because they want to be aware of like the Ted Bundys in the world. But then this new guy comes to town and he's really suspicious, and our main character is like, he's a drug dealer, but no, he's a vampire, okay? And it's freaking creepy. Like, this is really funny, but there are a couple scenes that are really gross and like really disturbing, like the cockroach scene, like the rat scene. Like, you know, be aware, be aware. People always get mad at me when I tell them to read this book and they get to the rat scene. I'm like, it's a horror! Like, what did you want me to say? Anyway, 5 stars, so good. For the thriller readers, for this prompt, you could do Monster as like a serial killer or a murderer. And the 2 books that I would suggest would be They Never Learn by Elaine Fargo and My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. Now, these are both very fast reads, so I think they would be perfect for a read-along, especially for Weekendween. Now, Samantha Downing does such amazing fast-paced thrillers, like, she's stunning. But this is supposed to be about a couple, this married couple, who kills people together. Like, that's their thing. That's their love language, is moida. And it's so funny and it's so good and it's so just the way that they like, say she will be like planning like how to kill somebody and he's like, oh my God, she's so hot. It's hilarious. I freaking loved it. I loved this book. I thought it was so good. And then we have They Never Learn, which is arguably better. This is kind of like a dark academia. It's a good for her moment. So you are following this woman, Scarlett, right? Oh my God, did I remember her name? Scarlett Clark. That's when you know you love a book. So Scarlett Clark is a professor at this university, and every year she looks among the university's staff and the students and picks the most vile man that she can find, and that has like been like date raping, who has been drugging, who has been harassing, like sexually harassing women, and she kills them. And we're basically following where she's gotten a little tiny bit sloppy, and people are starting to realize that there's a lot of like dudes that are being found that have committed suicide, and they're suspicious, and you're basically following her trying to get out of it. And it's so good. These are like, well, this is not good for her necessarily. This one's good for her, but these are just like fun, fast things that you could read for the second prompt. Okay, prompt number 3 is going to be to either listen to a spooky audiobook or to read a horror manga or graphic novel. Now, I have a lot of things to suggest for a lot of different genres of what kind of reader you are. Now, for the first one, we're going to do audiobooks. Now, the first 2, we're not going to get super into it because I've already talked about them and said the audiobooks are fantastic, but the audiobook for the Southern Book Club, so funny, so good. The Southern accents, if you live in the South or if you ever lived in the South, this is going to relate to you. And then the other one I've already said is Slew Foot. There's a part in this where she sings an entire song and it's so stunning. It's so beautiful. So I definitely suggest both of these. And then the other one that I would suggest the audiobook for is Misery by Stephen King. Now, I actually physically read this and then I went back and listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook is so good. Like, this is a really done audiobook in my opinion. Well done. It's not my favorite. That's the one I'm going to say second to this one, but Misery by Stephen King is really like one of his like cornerstone books. Like, this is what he's really known for, and it is one of my favorite books from him. So this is supposed to be following Paul Sheldon. He's an author, and his car breaks down in the middle of nowhere in an ice storm, I believe. And this woman saves him. Annie Wilkes. Have you heard of her? Annie Wilkes with the axe. She quote unquote saves him. And he wakes up in a bed, like chained to a bed in her house. And she is his biggest fan, his #1 fan. She loves his books so much, but he doesn't want to write those books anymore. He was writing like a series and he doesn't want to do it anymore. And she's really upset about it. And she's basically like, you're not going to leave until you write the next book. Yeah. And even though this book is very just like introspective in his own mind, there is some shit that Annie does in this book that is fucked. Oh, so fucked up. It's so good though. But we have one more book that I think you should only listen. Literally, I've almost bought this book so many times and I'm like, no, this audiobook, chef's kiss. It's so freaking good. And that's Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. This audiobook experience is so good because it's dramatized. So you're basically following just this woman, Dolores Claiborne, and you're following through her life, like as a child, as a mother, as an older woman. And she is basically like the caretaker for a woman that's older than her that is rich and dying. And they are sharing like gruesome stories that have happened in their lives and things that they've done to protect themselves, to protect their family. And they are almost like relating to each other in that way. And they do things for each other, criminal, maybe, things. And basically you are following Dolores Claiborne as she is at the police station. Because the woman that she was caring for has died and they're questioning her, and she's at the police station telling her story, and she's telling her like whole life story to these cops. And you can hear like when she pushes the chair back, you can hear like the metal against the floor, and she'll like go to get a drink of water and you can hear the cup hit the table and the water like hitting the glass and you can hear her drinking it. And I love that. I seriously, whenever I was listening to this, I closed my eyes and it felt like if I turned around, there would have been like a documentary playing on Netflix behind me. Like it felt real and I loved it. So I highly suggest the audiobook, and it's not too long, so that would be perfect for a readathon. For part 2 of this question about the graphic novel and manga, you already know I've got a stack. You already know I had to cull this down because I was, Katie, this is too many recommendations. Like, you need to hold back a little bit. But I'm just gonna say, obviously, I already said it before, but Monstrous, this totally works. It's a graphic novel. If you're not into manga, this is super good. But I will tell you, you're gonna have to get past the first volume because the first volume is all world building, and then it really gets into the thick of it. But it's so good, absolutely stunning, and the artwork is phenomenal. And then I'm gonna say, did I say this already? I don't remember, but yes, I did. The Promised Neverland, this also fits for the monster prompt because there are monsters in this. So this graphic novel is a little bit faster, and it's so, like, there's cute moments, there's horrifying moments, there's really sad moments. This would work really well, and the series is complete. So if you did want to read it in its entirety, that is an option, and you don't have to wait for new volumes to be released. So that's always a good idea. Another one like that is Monster by Naoki Urasawa. So this also fits for the monster prompt. Like, you could literally read one volume of this in the dark and fulfill 3 of the 4 prompts. Just a thought. This is a completed series as well. There are 9 of these volumes, and this is so good. This is touted as being like one of the most like highly claimed completed manga series ever, and I read it and I highly agree. I think it's amazing. You're basically following this man, Tenma, who is a brain surgeon, and he is told that he is going to be operating on this little boy that has a gunshot wound, and he goes in to operate, and then out of nowhere, like the chief of the police comes in, or the chief of the hospital comes in and says, actually, Tenma, we want you to work on the mayor because he just came in with like cardiac arrest. And Tenma's like, no, this boy's about to die. I'm gonna save him. He came in first. And he saves the little boy. And the hospital's not very happy about it. And then the little boy goes missing. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people in the hospital that are above Tenma all just start dying. And then all of a sudden, he's like a big deal in the hospital. And the police is like, that's suspicious. That's weird, but they can't prove it. But then like 15 years later, a bunch of other murders that are related to that or seemingly related to that start happening. And Tenma is like, did I save a serial killer? What? It's so good. Highly recommend. Again, this is one that takes a lot longer to read because it's very dense and it's very like intellectual, but it's so fucking good. So I definitely suggest that. Now, so on the flip side of that, one that is very easy to read, very fast, mainly artwork, and I've talked about it so many times, Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Oshimi. This will literally take you 10 minutes. 15 minutes max to read this. It's absolutely stunning. Let me actually just show you. Like, oh God, I flipped to any page. It's so beautiful. And there's nothing written on there. It's just stunning. Like, it's so beautiful. The artwork is gorgeous. It's so creepy. Like, so many patrons have been reading this and been like, Katie, what have you done to me? Like, ugh, it's so creepy. This is basically like, if you have ever seen Bates Motel, like, you know how the relationship between Norma and Norman Bates, it's like that, except he's like a tiny little boy. So you're basically following this woman who has a son and she's obsessed with him. Like just obsessed with her son and loving him and him not loving anyone else and him being her like little boy. And every time he tries to like kind of push back or be independent, the ways that she manipulates him are astronomical. It is so creepy, and this is such a fast read, so this is perfect for a readathon. And also, you just get like the first 3 volumes, because you're gonna need the second volume after you read the ending of this one, like, trust me. And the only other thing that I'm going to say for this prompt is one that if you're not really into horror and you're not really wanting to get into something like that, I would suggest Fangs by Sarah Anderson. This is about a vampire and a werewolf falling in love, and it's so cute. It's just each page is a different little comic strip of moments of them dating, and you would think like, oh, that's so simple, like that's so whatever, but like, no, it's so cute. It's so cute, and it's also such a fast read. So I definitely think this would be perfect if you have a couple lengthier things on your TBR for this weekend ween, and you're not really sure if you can complete all the prompts. This one will take you no time at all, and I do believe that it is available at a lot of libraries. The fourth and final prompt is the tried and true classic, and that is to read a book in the dark. Now, you can take this a lot of different ways. So usually what I do is I go into a place in my apartment that is like pitch dark, and I take a flashlight, or I actually have one of those little book lights that's like a little flashlight that can connect to the back of your book, and I'll read it that way, and it just makes it so atmospheric and creepy. Like if you're reading a horror, like that. Like I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things Like That for the first summer ween, I believe, and scared the shit out of me. Highly suggest it. But if you can't do that because like reading by flashlight isn't for you, or it gives you a migraine, you could read on a Kindle. That would also be a good idea. Or you could just read when it's nighttime, or a time of day, like really late at night where you are going to be scared because it's dark outside. And it doesn't have to be dark inside your apartment, but the fact that you know that it's night outside, that sometimes can really, really get the blood pumping, especially if you're reading something that's like paranormal or a serial killer or a true crime. True crime gets me when it's at night. Nothing else, but true crime, I don't want to read about that shit when it's dark outside. I don't want to read about that shit. No, I'm good. I'm good. My brain is going to go in too many directions. So that's a couple ideas for that. I do believe that I'm going to be reading a horror manga in the dark of my apartment. What am I talking about? Why am I saying maybe? That's definitely what I'm going to do. But I hope that all of this kind of helped you decide on a couple things that you could do for weekend ween. I hope that I gave you some suggestions, and if you have anything that you're like, Katie, you absolutely have to read this for weekend ween, let me know. I do have a couple things lined up, but I'm not absolutely sure what I'm going to read yet, so I don't want to give you any false hope, but I am planning on vlogging the experience. So if you want to subscribe and see that content, that would be amazing. If you want to follow me on Goodreads, Instagram, or Patreon, all of those are linked down below, as well as a myriad of other links to help support this channel in many other ways. If you've gotten this far into the video, leave the pumpkin emoji for Halloween. That would be really cute. So leave the pumpkin emoji if you've gotten this far. And all of that being said, I hope you're having an amazing day, evening, night, dusk, dawn, whatever it is you're having in whatever part of the world you are currently having it in. And I'll see you in a video coming very soon. Bye.